Hey, this is Manga Haul number 6, and let's jump right in. The very first thing I got out of my Right Stuff box that I popped in a DVD player, Blu-ray player right away was Lupin III, the first. This movie is really awesome. I would say if you don't know what Lupin is, you might need to go check out one of the original series. There's the first series. That's the first one I watched. That was like the early 70s one. It's the rough animation, but it's still really good. I would say hunt down maybe one of the later ones, or go watch Miyazaki's directorial debut, Castle Cagliostro. If you are a hardcore Lupin III fan and you haven't seen this movie, I recommend to go watch it immediately. This movie does everything you want a Lupin III movie to do, and it looks beautiful in its 3D animation art style. It just doesn't necessarily hold your hand if you have no clue who these characters are, because after the late 60s, that's how long this franchise has been going. If you don't know these characters, then I guess, you just need to get established somewhere else. But other than the movie not being too hand-holdy and introducing you to these characters, it does respect their relationships and the way they interact with each other pretty much perfectly. And as you see, I got this steel box, released by G-Kids. I'm not too familiar with that company. I've just heard of it around, but it's a really good steel box. It's got a booklet with all the classic and newest characters that you need to pay attention to, and it even goes into detail in saying like how they went about doing the 3D models for all these characters, taking their classic 2D renditions and then making them into faithful 3D models for these movies. In this box, it does come with Blu-ray and DVD. The Blu-ray, I only watched the Blu-ray version and in subtitles. But if you're a fan of, I think, the third series, it has that English voice cast that a lot of people are huge fans of. So I didn't watch the English dub because I started it because it is so well animated. The facial animations are pretty much exclusive to the Japanese dub, so there's pretty much really hard to do really good mouth flaps with 3D animated films of this caliber. So give it a watch if you're a Lupin fan, or go find maybe one of the TV series to go watch to get introduced if you're new to this franchise. Next up, let's just do a complete 180 on tone, and let's just jump into Berserk. This is my very first experience with Berserk. I never even as much as watched a snippet on YouTube about it before, so I had very little knowledge about what the series actually is about. But it's very dark, and I think I really see what's going on here is that this world is so bleak that it's pretty much the representation of what's going on inside him. It seems like everything's been kind of taken away from him, and the only thing he has to do is pretty much just fight back against these demons that are unrelentingly coming after him. As we see even early on, it's like the only thing he can do is just be as brutal as the demons are that are hunting him, and be equally savage to them back. He really has no hope of ever being in society, or even having anyone even to be around him ever, because every time anytime someone comes near him, they're pretty much guaranteed to get brutally murdered by the demons that are hunting him. And so he kind of has this super nihilistic feel of that, if you can't fend for yourself, you what do I care? It pretty much seems like his apathy towards anyone that gets caught up in the wake of the violence that surrounds him is pretty much just some kind of front for his own emotional baggage and the terrible life that he pretty much has to go through. And the only thing he really has for himself right now is just to fight back and be as brutally savage as possible against these demons that are constantly hunting him down. That's pretty much most of it so far. We got a couple short. It's pretty episodic so far in this first volume. Nothing super, it doesn't seem like it gets too much into his backstory. Nothing yet I haven't seen, but it looks like it's just kind of setting up another kind of someone's hunting him down. So this world is so bleak that these demons have complete ownership of these cities and do what they want with the people there. And then Guts shows up and he just kind of swings back at him. He really doesn't care who he kills, or who gets caught up in the violence. But so far it's very good. The artwork is pretty amazing too. And then up next, I read through this pretty much almost this whole thing last night. It was it's a pretty climactic section in I'm a Hero on Volume 4 of this omnibus. So this is kind of their equivalent of Volume 8. At least the back half of this is. Really climactic for what the situation that they're in the last volume or two, for being on the rooftops of this shopping mall. So, and it's I think it's so far it's the first time that's pretty much established how much ammunition. This I think his name is Hideo. How much ammunition Hideo has, and it turns out he has about 100 shots from the beginning of the series. And we see him shoot quite a bit here. We actually see how much of a badass he is with this shotgun pretty much for the first time. And so he's the only one with real guns. Everyone else, you see like these automatic, like this rifle here. It's actually just an air gun. It's a BB gun. He's pretty much the only one with the real firepower. And we actually see him be a pretty big badass here at the end of this volume. Probably what before the climactic stuff started ramping up, we kind of see some of the inner workings about some of the structure with the dudes on the rooftop. This crazy dude, this guy's a little more level-headed. They both kind of work together, but they have different means of getting what they want. What they want Hideo for is shotgun, and they'll pretty much just eventually kind of just do what they can to steal it from him or get him to use it for them. Like at this point in the story, Hideo's like learning that, oh, maybe I am the hero, maybe I can do good things, and maybe I can be because he's a manga artist, and he's used to writing stories in manga, and now he's finally the main character of his own show. So that's kind of like what this whole meta story is of this. Give me a second. I'm gonna go find that. I'm just looking for the panel I'm looking for. Like in this panel, he's literally referring to not using this girl as a sex slave for the bad dudes on the rooftop to get what they want. He's literally he's going behind their back and not having to play by their rules. He's literally, I can do this alone, as in he can produce the sample all by himself. He doesn't need he's helping the girl out by not having to have sex with her. It's pretty hilarious in context. It's amazing. So probably the great thing about I'm a Hero is that there's so much like meta storytelling going on here. It's not just that he's in this zombie apocalypse and he's trying to survive, but it's that he's literally become the main character in his own story, that he gets to be the hero now, and that all the zombies and all the people that all the pretty much the bad people are kind of this metaphor for like Japanese society as a whole. So there's it's really deep in a way that's maybe it's hard to figure out for this particular set of books because it's more action based here in this half, but there's always so much like deeper storytelling going on in this series that it was really palpable, and that's probably one of my favorite things about continuing reading this story. So I mean, if you like zombie stuff, if you like zombie stuff as social commentary, societal commentary, it's really great. So I would probably really give this a super recommendation. Next up, I also read this last night. Mobile Suit Gundam Thunderbolt Volume 3. Also a very climactic volume. Pretty much it's the last of that battle that was set up in the last volume. It's very good. They wrap it up very nicely. I'm interested where it's going to go next. It really plays with its characters really well. Like all the characters have maybe a reason for actually hating this whole conflict, but they're kind of just wrapped up in it. And the two main protagonists of both factions, they're pretty much just fighting each other because that's just what they're supposed to do. It's like they don't really ask questions. Everyone really does just want to stop fighting and go live their peaceful lives, but they're just wrapped up in this combat. So very, very climactic. The artwork is very good. Not as much to talk about in this volume in particular, just kind of specifics, plot details, but it's the climactic showdown for probably the opener of the first 3 volumes. So I mean, it just gets really, it was really fast paced because I was able to read it in like a half hour. It was not a whole lot of reading. Half of the reading in this whole volume was actually just listening to these song lyrics that are playing over the radio. So I mean, that was the bulk of the actual storytelling in this volume, but very good. So imagine if you start reading Mobile Suit Gundam Thunderbolt, maybe get volumes 2 and 3 in a bundle, and maybe get the 4th one, or if you have to get 3 and 4, get 3 and 4 together, so that way you can breeze through this one and get onto the next one. So that way you don't read this in 20 minutes and then you got nothing left to go on to for the meantime. So very good. This is keep moving on. And to continue on the space theme, Volume 6, Dr. Stone opens up with What's his name? I'm really, I'm really bad at character names. But Senku's dad, Byakuya. Apparently he's an astronaut, so we got more space stuff. More space stuff in manga, that's always cool. And we kind of see the events of the whatever mysterious explosion from his perspective up in space. I'm not going to go into too much details just because I don't want to be too spoilery, but like pretty much what happens to kind of explain some of the stuff that's happened earlier in the series. So kind of go ahead, if you're this far, you're going to read this anyway. So I haven't gotten super deep in this particular volume, so I haven't been this far yet, but this whole opening chapter, I think this opening half for Byakuya and his son Senku, the kind of how the past and the present are going to be kind of meeting up in a really good kind of side story here. So, and art's always been pretty good. I'm interested to see where this goes. I hope it's not just they were kind of setting up a tournament arc, but they kind of resolved that pretty quickly, and then they're kind of setting up the Stone Wars up. That's pretty much what's going to be happening next in the series. So, see what happens. I'm always interested in keeping up with whatever the hot shonen is nowadays. So, and to talk about maybe a classic shonen, or what could be considered classic nowadays. I suppose it should be. It's 20 years old at least. So, One Piece. There's almost 100 volumes of it, darn near. So, back a long time ago, I read the first 8 volumes, and I think that ended with the clown guy. I read that 8 volumes, and I said, okay, I don't really need to read much more for now, but maybe I should have kept up with it because now there's so much volumes. I just want to see where the story goes because apparently it goes places. So I haven't read this one volume yet, but I want to maybe get back on the One Piece bandwagon, see what happens, see where it goes. I just want to see how crazy you can get with the story. Like how does Ichiro Oda do this? How does he make a series and continuously for 20 years and who knows how many chapters? I'm going to be pretty stoked to see triple digits on a volume of manga. That's going to be pretty insane to see. And that's pretty much what I'm doing here is I want to get back, maybe give One Piece another shot. So I'll probably read this pretty soon. Haven't read this specific book yet. Probably maybe catch up on volume 8 too. And let's jump back into space because I got volume 1. I don't know if it's omnibus, but I got volume 1 of Planet Tess. This is the same author as Vinland Saga, one of my favorite mangas, so I jumped into this. I wanted to start reading it. And I just got into the first few pages. And I'm just kind of intrigued how you're going to make a story about people that clean up junk up in space. That's pretty topical because right now Elon Musk is making his Starlink internet, so that's all low Earth orbit satellites, thousands of satellites. And so that kind of just goes... That's exactly the same themes of what's going on here. There's so much junk up in space. What are they going to do about it? I'd like to see what this author thinks about kind of that situation going on right now in modern day. This is a little bit older of a series. When did this originally come out? Not exactly sure, but it's definitely got some of that like space shuttle nostalgia back from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. That's kind of the vibes I get. The kind of revitalization of NASA back in the 80s and 90s. So that stuff, that's always something I've always been super interested in. So I'll probably give you a whole rundown in the series when I get deeper into it, but we'll see. I just want to see like what's the story going to be about. I'm pretty interested. So let's go to Master Keaton Volume 3. It's been a while since I've read this series, but reading Monster got me back into wanting to finish this or keep going in this series. Urasawa's writing is really good. His artwork, I really like his artwork. I feel like Master Keaton is a little more up my alley right now because his doctor character from Monster is getting pretty gloomy at the end of that first big volume, so Mr. Keaton's a little more of an upbeat type of guy, a little more stoic, a little more James Bondy maybe. What Master Keaton's known for is that he gets into these situations and he uses his wits and his survival abilities and his military experience to kind of outsmart the bad guys. And he, figures out the mystery. He proves the mystery. Usually, that's what he uses, that investigative skill he has. So it has that investigative half, quarter Sherlock Holmes, quarter special ops agent, military, survival expert. He's like his own brand of Indiana Jones. It's really cool. But I haven't read this volume yet, so I don't know exactly what's going on. What's going to be like the bad guy of the week or the situation for this whole series, for this volume. But I do really like the artwork. I like these character designs a lot. I'm going to have to give this one a read. Then we got Naruto. And this is volume 11 because that's as far as I am right now. But I actually bought the entire series. And I bought the entire series, and I'll show you that too here in a second. But we're pretty much deep into the Chunin exams. We see a little bit more of the different types of people who inhabit this world full of crazy ninjas that murder each other all the time. I think I just got past that Rock Lee fight, which is pretty awesome. Actually, what I noticed for what I've read so far of the Naruto, the fights are actually pretty well done. They pair the fighters together pretty well and have like their weaknesses and strengths be kind of the determining cause along with their strategy. It's not just one guy stronger than the other. Usually they'll have that's the kind of thing that this author and Taikubo they're good at. They're good at their character designs and their abilities and how they strategize, giving Naruto another shot. It was one of the first manga I read, but I never really read more than the first couple volumes because it was really edgy for me at the time. I was this little kid trying to read it, but now it's more my speed. And second to last, got volume 4 of Uzaki Chan Wants to Hang Out. This is the latest volume I think I can get my hands on for the moment. I do see the pace that the story is actually going, and I do appreciate that the characters actually spending more time with each other. I think it's definitely in their subconscious that they like each other, but they just don't really admit it to even themselves. But they spend so much time together, and they end up in, like these right here, that they're literally just taking a nap, and they end up just kind of like cuddling each other when they're sleeping. So it's pretty much their subconsciouses are really strongly pulling them together, and they even got on some pseudo dates, but they just don't call it that, and their friends are still pushing them to spend more time with each other and try to get them in more situations. We even have this moment where it's pretty clear that they've looked at each other in somewhat a semi-romantic way. Like he's trying to figure out, like process, like what did this look mean? This isn't just the way that Uzaki's looking at him. This is the way he was This is the way he perceived Uzaki when he looked at her. So in that moment, it was like, so I'd say at this point, like there's pretty much no doubt that there's some kind of romantic tension between the two of them. They're not both that completely oblivious. They kind of know it. As long as that kind of development keeps going, I'm gonna be more than happy to keep reading this. As long as it's still funny, as long as situations are still funny. As long as the character development and the character relationships keep going, it's going to be more than good enough for me to keep reading for the time being. And finally, we're looking at Volume 1 of Akira. I've been in love with the film for a long time. One of the first anime films I watched. And other than Miyazaki films, it's one of the first films I watched. And it's just, it's so good, it's so deep. There's so much stuff going on that when I learned that the movie only really covers half of what's in the entire manga, I just had to jump on it. So I hunted down this copy. It took a little time to do it, but I finally pulled the trigger on getting this one. It's quite a big book, so you can see it's pretty huge. I'm super excited to read more, find out what actually happens. Keeps going. How's this? I'm pretty excited to see how the story keeps going. I want to see how much the movie. I want to see how similar the movie is to the original source material, and see how that continues on to a little bit of a more detailed, longer story. This is the big print version. It's pretty cool. Should have. So I started reading it. I'm just a few pages in, so I can already see how some of the details are a little bit different from the film. But the film is kind of put together in such a way that it kind of knew like how to fix maybe some pacing issues. But we'll see what happens when the story in the manga gets going. See how much it really is the same. So I'm really excited to see how any extra details you can get from the manga versus the anime. So that's all my new manga for now, and I'm pretty excited to keep reading pretty much most of these. So I'd actually recommend pretty much all these depending on your taste. So I mean, just hit me up in the comments. So maybe give more details on what you should be looking out for next. So have a good day. See you later. Bye.